Hello, this is Christian. Welcome to another Angular video. In this video, I'm going to cover three things: the built-in directives for the ngClass, style, and the if structure. So here is the sample application. I'm having the add component template up here in the top. The bottom is the actual source for that, and then the right side is the output that's rendered to this browser here. All right, I also have here a style sheet. It's inline style. I have three classes. This directives, red, and size. Directives here apply to this div tag so that it will center everything here. So you see on the right side, it's all centered. Just make it nice. Okay, so in the book, the class you bind to a class, a single class. Okay, just a single. You cannot combine a lot of classes in here. It's just one at a time. So here I have a class called special. Okay, this special class needs to be predefined. It's a CSS, right? For CSS, you bind that to the class directive and you wrap that whole thing inside a square bracket. If you don't do that, it's an error and Angular won't know that. So you need to wrap it inside the square brackets, the equal sign, and then followed by a condition wrapped inside the double quotes. If this condition is true, then the class special will be rendered. Otherwise, it will not. Okay, so that's all it is. Let's go back in the code. Okay, and then we'll load the output here. So here's the class. So typically, this is how you create classes in CSS, right? Now let's apply the class to the Hello Earth here. So I will just do a square bracket, pair of square brackets, followed by the word class. When Angular sees the square brackets followed by the word class, that is a directive, so Angular will run and compile that. Dot the class name, I have a red and a size. So let's just say we do the red first. Okay, and then I need to set that to a condition. I use the double quotes. And the condition will be anything that is a truly or a falsely value. That is anything that is evaluated to a Boolean type, right? So like 1 equals 1, like that is always true. So therefore, red will be applied, and you notice that it changes to red instantly, okay? If it's a 2, then it's false. Then it won't show up. I'm going to also do inspection over here so we can see the elements itself. Let me expand this. So you can see that right now the H1 has no, I can enlarge this a little bit. It has no class applied to it because it's false. If I change this back to 1, refresh, so save, and that should be changed here. So you can see class is called red. Okay. If you want to apply the second class size to it, right, you cannot just do dot size or something. I will have to do the whole thing again. I can do like another one, class, exactly same, size, and then here again based on a certain condition. If it's a different condition, then you do it separately, right? Maybe 1 equals 1 also, if that's the case. And then that will also be true. If it's true, then now you see that both red and size are applied to this element. Okay. Again, here is, I'm just literally put something there. It's a truly falsely value. There's a bunch of them. So instead of that, you could write a variable down here in the code and check the value. Again, it has to be a Boolean type. So I could do like is size on, and I could set that to either true or false. If I set true, and then up here I'm going to use that variable on here, and it will be rendered to either true or false. In this case, it's true. Let's see, class size on. Well, it is true. Why is it not? Let's see what happened here. Is size on? Okay, I need to make sure why that's not happening. Maybe I did not save this. Let's do a save. Control S to save. Because that should work. Okay, so there it is, right? So it's back on. And so it checks for this value to be true. If I change that to false, or anything that is false, like 1 equals 1, 2, that will be false, right? Oh, I should probably just put false here. Okay, so you can call a variable, you can call a function if you want. I could change this to a function, and this could become a function. I would say like that, and I can check the condition here of just return true, for example. If I return true, then the color should be back to the size should be back on. Return false, and vice versa. So and so forth. Okay, so you can do a lot of things here. This is one of the reasons why if you want to add like a third class, a fourth class, like in Bootstrap, you have a lot of classes to apply to. So instead of doing this so many times, you could just call a function, and in the function like this, you can turn this all these off. Just do one time, and instead of its size on, you can say something like, I'll leave that is, but I'm going to return not false. I will return a list of a list of style, and that can go in here. Okay, so you could do that. I'll let you figure that out, but that is how you do it. You can have multiple classes added at the same time by applying that to a variable up here. Okay, so the next one is, let's see what's next. Got the class. Oh yeah, it shows right here. If you want to do multiple classes at the same time, and then you could apply that here. So it's adding the modify and the special to the class and return that class instead. Okay, let's see. The next one is the style. This is kind of similar. This is the inline style you apply to a element. Notice here again you wrap with the square brackets and the style followed by the actual property of that style. So this is not something that you create your own. This is something is part of the HTML, of part of the CSS, like the color property, the font size. Like you can do a font size, font style. All your CSS properties can go here, and this again checks on the condition, and the value will be returned based on this condition. If it's true, returns red, otherwise returns green, and so the result will be button style equals color colon red or green. Okay, that's what it is. Again, you can use that only for one style. You can add more if you want, but again, that'll be inefficient. So let's go back here again. I could do like this. So again, style dot, let's just say you want to get the color. Okay, the color is going to be either red or green, for example. Let's load this back up. So red or green, and it's based on the size on, for example. If I say is size on, I call the function. If it's true, then return the color red. Okay. Else return the color green. And you have to wrap that as a string. Okay. So you can also put this as a hex values. I'm pretty sure you can do that as well. Maybe I can do like you know, FF0000. That's red, right? So let's save that. And if that works, then that should be true. Okay, so you can see that it's false, right? Because it returns false. So therefore it assigns the color green to the style, and the CSS, you see that it's a style attribute and has the color green for the color property. Now if I change this to true, then it should be red because it is a hex value. It didn't happen. Did I save it again? Okay, so it changes to red, and it takes the hex value, it changes to RGB, but still that's red. So that is style. The this is for multiple style. You can call it, instead of doing this way, this one only applies to one style at a time. If you want to check the font size, you do another one, right? Style again. Here's style.font size, and you use this ternary operator, or it's just called the Elvis operator because it shapes like the Elvis Presley. This is the hair, this is like the eye, and if you tilted, it's supposed to have the image of Elvis. So they call the Elvis operator. All right, so let's look at the ngIf. So if it's just like your typical if-else structure, okay? You can only do one if and one else block in using Angular on the template. You cannot have like if something else if. It doesn't work that way. So you're limited to just the if then else block. If you want to use multiple of them, you have to do that separately. But anyway, so here's an example of something that I want to show you a little bit. The keyword hidden here is it's not something very special. It's a regular attribute for any HTML element. You can hide the content of this tag. So basically, you hide it from the DOM, actually from the view. It does not move that element from the DOM tree. So let's just go back and I'll show you just a really simple example of that. So here I'm going to remove this. So we're back to where we were before. Okay, and save that. Now if I do a hidden, right, it's just a regular HTML attribute. If I save it, and you see that it's no longer visible, but if you look at the DOM tree, it's still here. Okay, it's just hidden. And you can change that to whatever you need to do, right? You can write a JavaScript to unhide that. But if you change this to an Angular attribute, a directive, if you say hidden should be applied if, again, something is true, like is size on, right? I'm doing that again. So if it's true, then hidden will be applied, and you should not see the H1 there on the DOM tree either. Did it not show? Let me see. Hidden is true. Yeah, well, I thought it will remove that completely from the DOM tree because it's not supposed to show it there. Let's see. Hidden is 101. Okay. What about if it's false? Okay. Yeah, I thought it's gone. I might have done it incorrectly. I think, well, this is a, I was thinking differently. I was thinking of the if block. Okay. But again, this is just show you that you can hide using the Angular directive or the regular one. What I wanted to show the hidden and the disappearance of this element from the DOM tree was the ngIf. Okay. So let's just say this. So let's see if we do the ngIf. Let's go back to the text, and if just say if this is true or false, then it will render whatever is in between this h3 tag. Okay, the syntax is you have to use a star in front of this ngIf directive, and it has a capital I for if, so that's really important. All the rest are lowercase, and then equal sign, and then followed by a pair of quotes. Inside that quote is the condition again. Okay, so let's go back here. So ng with the star, ngIf something is true. We can choose to use that size on again. If that condition is true, in this case it's true, and then it's going to show that or hide it. Okay, if it's true means go ahead and render this h1 and everything inside it from here to the end of that tag. Okay, it's true, so we see that one. Now if it's false, and as you can see it's here, right? The h1 is here. Now if I change it to false and I save this, okay, so it's gone. It's not true anymore, so therefore this should not be rendered, including the h1 tag. I mean, everything here should not be rendered to the DOM at all. Okay, so that's why you see it's gone here. And if you look into the DOM tree, you see that it's not there either. Okay, it's not visible. This is the end of that div tag. Okay, from here to here, the directives. so it's not there. And that's what I want to show you earlier between the if and the hidden. Okay, I meant to say if you use the ngIf, then it will remove this from the DOM completely, whereas the other one, it did not remove it. It would just hide it. Okay, so this is the if directive. Now, if here, so if you apply the ngIf directly to an HTML element, this element will be affected. It will be either rendered or not rendered based on where you placed it. Okay, it can be applied to any element, h1, all the DOM, all the elements of the HTML object will work. You can also apply to a template, which is something that Angular use, which is called the ng template. Now, ng template is the same. It's similar to a template in HTML. If you're not familiar with the template, like it's just called template. It's an HTML5 element. What it is that whatever you put in here, okay, any content you put in here will not be displayed to the browser. Okay, so for example, if I save this, okay, and I'll change this to true. Okay, you see that nothing is rendered here. Okay, you see the templates here, right? The template, this is an HTML template, HTML element, but the content is not visible. Okay, because it's hidden. It's not visible, and the only way to show the actual template, the data here, is to use the JavaScript to grab its content and attach it to the DOM tree. Okay, so use that for that purpose. And this is the same way the ng template works. If you put something inside the ng template, it's not going to be rendered unless it's being called or created or rendered by another code. So usually you can put something here inside a tag like this. Okay, so the template here, this is not visible, right? It's not shown here, and let's see, as you can see, even though this is true, it's not shown because it's not being called. Okay, something else to call trigger this template to work, and I'll show you what that means in a minute here. So let's go back to what it was before. I'll put this back into the h1, and I will remove the template. Okay, so the h1 here will be rendered if that is true. I just showed you earlier. That's the case, it's going to be back on again. All right, if that is false, then there is a second part called the else part. Okay, so you put the else part right here after that condition. You put a semicolon, and you have something called else, and there's only one else. You can have many else, and then you have to call a function, actually an ID or a function, basically. And this would be like, let's just say the else part. I just call it that. Okay, that means it's going to search the DOM tree here to find a template. It has to be on a template, otherwise it won't work. I cannot apply that to another h1 tag, for example. Okay, and here I might have another h1, and I put a different text called hello Angular. Okay, and then here, how does it know where to go to the else part? This is like an ID. I'll put that in here, and I'll wrap it in here. I mean, I put a pound sign in front. So the pound sign here is like the ID of the CSS. Okay, so it's gonna look for this special directive or the special tag, and it will run this text in here. Again, a template only runs when you call it this way. So if I save it, okay, so because this is true, it's gonna go and run whatever it's in here. This is like the then part, right? If this is true, then go ahead and run this until the end of the h1. So it skips the rest. If this is not true, then go to the else part and call that, go to that place, right, that tag in here, and render what's in here. Okay, so let's change that to false. Save. And it should say hello Angular. Okay, so now it renders this template here. If you notice, this ng template is not rendered at all. It's just going to go right directly to the h1 element here. So we see that's down here. Okay, so it jumps over to this part over here. Now, and that's all you have, right? You cannot jump to another part. In other words, you cannot have another if here and it jumps to another part. It won't work this way because, again, the template here doesn't render itself. When you call it through, it runs line 4, it's false, it jumps over to line 6, and it does its job, it's done out of it. Okay? So if I have another ng template, again, that won't run. So the then part is defaulted to this. Now you can also have another thing called then part. This is similar to what I showed you earlier about the Elvis, right? The Elvis operator. This is the Elvis operator, right? This is his hair, his eyes, and I guess we'll give it a J. That's the smirk, right? So again, it's like condition is true, then true part, else false part. Okay, so again, condition, if it's true, then the true part, else the false part. So here you can have another template. I'm going to copy this, and let me resize this a little bit if I can. I'll put it here in the then part. Okay, and let me just remove that. So if that is true, then move to the then part, and this will be the then part. Else, go to the else part. Okay, I'll put here hello moon, I guess. All right, save. It should still say the Angular because it's false. Okay, now if I change this to true, if I save it, okay, it jumps to the moon. So as you can see, it skips this Earth completely. It did not render the Earth part, right? So we do this. Be very careful because if you explicitly put the then part here, it's going to jump over here. And whatever you have here will not be rendered at all. So that is the default. Whether see whether if you have like I put something here part 1 or something, probably won't find it. As you can see, it's not visible because it couldn't find the then part, but still it will not render this part because this is like a fallback content sort of, and in this case this can completely be ignored. Okay, if this is the default then don't put the explicit then part here. So be careful with that one. All right, I think that is the if condition. I think I'll stop here. In the next video, I will do another one kind of similar to the if, but it will be the switch, the ng switch.